Hello! So, Steve Shives, he's a funny little man. Like, he's so certain in his rightness. And everything he says is so right. He's so certain of that. Like, it's really weird to watch. He's just so certain of it. Like, none of this shit applies to him. None of it applies to him. Because he's so right. It's so weird to hear, like, this bullshit.
There's an excellent op-ed published today in the New York Times. This is it right here. It's called What Snowflakes Get Right About Free Speech, and it's by Ulrich Baer, and I cannot recommend it to you highly enough.
He's gonna go through it. Don't bother. It's from his summation of it. It doesn't seem like anything that anybody should be reading.
In the piece, Ulrich Baer describes how the student protesters who have come out to stand against speakers such as Milo Yiannopoulos or Richard Spencer in recent weeks and months at college campuses across the United States, these students who have often been attacked and vilified by people on the right.
It isn't their opinions that's getting them attacked and vilified, dude. It's the fact that they're turning over cars and setting fires and breaking windows and shit like that. Like, it's the destruction of property. It's the getting into fights, starting fights, instigating it. It's that shit that's getting them vilified.
As being anti-free speech or putting their own feelings and their own sensitivities ahead of stalwart principles of the republic like free speech.
Well, aren't they? Come on, man. Aren't they?
Are snowflakes, and they just need to be silenced or shamed into going back to their dorms and studying instead of going out and hitting the streets and protesting.
No, I just think that they should be doing that shit on their own time, and they should be focusing on their studies if they're in college. Like, I don't care what you do on the weekend, but when you're shutting down schools so that people can go protest, that's retarded.
People like Spencer or Yiannopoulos. Baer argues really, really persuasively and really articulately that it is actually those folks, the so-called snowflakes, who are the true champions of free speech, not the apologists and the defenders of Spencer and Yiannopoulos and all of the other assorted deplorable people.
All the people that disagree with you. It's cool that Steve's just unashamed about his bullshit. Like, he just doesn't care. Like, he's so right, it doesn't even register to him that he's just an asshole.
The hate mongers and purveyors of ignorance and intolerance who have, for some reason, been granted platforms on college campuses with alarming frequency over the last few years.
Why do you think that is, Steve? Why do you think it's alarming frequency that these right-wing people... Could it be the left-wing oppression that we've been going through for 8 years and we're finally trying to kick that shit off? Like, you think maybe that's why? You think maybe people have been told they're pieces of shit enough? Think maybe that's why so often, so frequent now, Steve? Huh?
And in this piece, Baer covers a lot of really interesting ground. He talks about the limited value of debates in situations like this. He talks about the idea that there are certain topics that really shouldn't be held up for public debate, that universities shouldn't feel a responsibility to host debates over.
Look, man, people are still talking about whether or not the earth is flat. Like... So where are you at with that? Like, is that worth discussing at all? Like, I mean, come on, dude. What? Everything's worth discussing in one way or another. Even if just for the fun of doing the science experiment to go, see? There you go. Wrong. Like, you have no fun in life. That's your problem. You have no fun in life. Nothing entertains you. Nothing tickles your fancy, Steve. You need to find something that will truly tickle you. That will make you have fun in life. Like... I always feel bad during these, man. It sucks. It just sucks. I feel bad for these people.
If there is a proposed debate or a proposed sort of implied debate, which is often the excuse used when awful people like Spencer and Yiannopoulos and others of their ilk are invited to speak at college campuses, the excuse made by people who, even by people who claim not to want to defend their ideology, they say, well, we need to hear them out because their ideas need to be heard in order to be argued about and rejected.
Yeah, ideas need to be heard in order to be argued about and rejected. Like that needs to happen. I don't... like, you're so right. You feel you're so right, Steve. I don't get it. I don't understand. Like, how can you have such absolute fucking certainty in your own point of view? Like, I question the shit that I think about, that I have absolute certain points of view, probably from the perspective of others. Like, no, Steve, you define pig-headedness. You define it. You are it in toto.
And Bear makes the point that in most cases, people like Richard Spencer and Milo Yiannopoulos have nothing new to say and will not be informing anyone in the audience about their views or telling anyone anything that they haven't heard already. You are merely, by giving them an audience, by giving them a platform, you are merely enabling them and allowing them to perpetuate their hatred and their intolerance and propagate their twisted and in many cases harmful, dangerous ideology.
Yeah, but isn't that incumbent on people actually, like, listening to them and giving a fuck what they say? Like, I still don't see the giant movement that Richard Spencer's kicking up. Like, I'm not seeing it. His ideas are kind of shit, so nobody cares. Like, I don't get it, Steve. You're so certain that if these people get a chance to speak, they're gonna win. It's guaranteed they're gonna win. Well, that means that they got pretty good ideas to use, Steve. Like, doesn't it? Isn't that what that means? Like, you think their ideas are so kick-ass that if only they get the opportunity to speak, we're done for. I don't get it, dude. I just don't get it.
And I've linked to the piece in the description box of this video. I urge all of you to go read it. But there is one particular passage that I want to share with you. Ulrich Bear says, quote, "The idea of freedom of speech does not mean a blanket permission to say anything anybody thinks. It means balancing the inherent value of a given view with the obligation to ensure that other members of a given community can participate in discourse as fully recognized members of that community. Free speech protections, not only but especially in universities, which aim to educate students in how to belong to various communities, should not..."
Educate students in how to belong to various communities. Really? That's what you're sending your children to university for, parents, so that they can learn to live in various communities. Like, I always thought college was for learning how to do the job that you want to do in the future, or learn enough to get a degree so that you could get a good job in the future. I didn't really think it was learning how to live in various communities. What the fuck does that even mean?
Should not mean that someone's humanity or their right to participate in political speech as political agents can be freely attacked, demeaned, or questioned.
Wow. You can't be attacked, like, demeaned, attacked, or questioned. Just don't even question me. Just fuck off. Don't even question it. Don't even question it. What? I've yet to hear an idea so good that I wasn't willing to question it to some degree. Except, let's go get pussy tonight. But even then, you know, that's risky. So, like, yeah, I don't know. I think that's horseshit. But I understand why you think it's fucking awesome.
Bear also points out how the abilities of folks in marginalized groups, for instance, trans people, people of color, undocumented immigrants, and the list goes on, have been attacked and undermined by others in the name of freedom of speech.
Well, attacked and undermined. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, Do you mean physically attacked? Because you can't really use freedom of speech as defense for being physically attacking. Like, you use all these buzzwords and you make it sound so terribly bad, these people that are speaking other ideas. Like, it's... I don't get it. I guess I'm just not that fucking sensitive. Like, I don't know. I don't get it, Steve. I don't understand.
And that reminds me, as many things in this discussion often do, of the paradox of tolerance, which is something that I have spoken about in videos before, and a lot of you already know what it is, but just in case you haven't heard of the paradox of tolerance, it was stated most famously by Karl Popper.
The Jiggy Jar Jar dude, Karl Popper.
Who said that if you want a truly tolerant society, the one thing you must not be tolerant of is intolerance. The paradox is there can be no such thing as perfect tolerance.
Well, man, if your ideology has a paradox that big, like, isn't that a disproving paradox? Like, doesn't that just mean you can't have it? Like, you can't have it. It's not going to happen. People are fallible by our nature. So, you can't have it. You can't have it, Steve. You can't have perfect tolerance. It isn't going to happen. Because always there will be somebody intolerant. Always there will be intolerant Muslims. Always there will be intolerant Christians. Always there will be intolerant atheists. Always there will be intolerant people. There will always be intolerant people, Steve. You can't have it. Bam. Like, but we're going to fucking work for it anyways, god damn it.
Because if you are tolerant of everything, including intolerance, then ultimately intolerance will take over. The intolerant will impose their will on the tolerant, and you will wind up with a final product of an intolerant society, which was allowed to happen in the name of tolerance.
If they get a chance to speak, man, it's done. It's over with. That we're fucked. We're fucked. They're talking. Holy shit, they're talking. Like, it doesn't work that way, man. People are still involved. You still have the X factor. And I don't even understand if you take the X factor of people out, you believe the ideas are so good. You're like a racist that has seen how awesome racism is, but knows how brutal and horrific it is. So you think that the idea of racism is so fucking fantastic, but you can't let people find out about it. Because if people find out about it, then everybody's gonna want to be racist because it's so fucking awesome. It doesn't fucking work that way, man. It's a shitty ideology too. Your ideology's shitty, their ideology's shitty. I disagree with both of them. Fucking people can do that shit. Like, it isn't all black and white, dude. It isn't a zero-sum game. If you're not tolerant of all people, that doesn't mean that you're racist of all people. Like, it doesn't... You have this big, broad brush, Steve. The big, huge, broad brush that you paint the world in. And... I don't understand. Like, your echo chamber must be so tiny. It's got to be so tiny that's just you. I don't understand how you can be so stupid. I don't get it. How can you become so stupid? I'm really going on a long rant because I don't want to get up again. I have to walk over and get the fucking camera.
See, a lot of folks in the atheist and skeptical community especially believe that when they are defending the rights of awful people like Spencer or Yiannopoulos, or awful groups like neo-Nazi groups or the Ku Klux Klan or other white supremacist or white nationalist groups to speak, that they are doing something good, that they're defending the principle of freedom of speech. And they think, well, I have to defend freedom of speech for people like that because I want to preserve it for people like me and for other people. And that's a wonderful idea, and that's a wonderful concept, and it's a wonderful principle. But I don't think that it translates to real life perfectly.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't translate perfectly. Nothing translates perfectly to real life because humans Humans are involved. You're always going to have variations, Steve. It doesn't translate well. So what we need to do is we need to just encourage people to get along as well as they possibly can. And if somebody doesn't like you, then fucking avoid them. Just, like people do. Or people should. I don't know, Steve. Like, you can't beat it out of us. You can't force us to fucking like each other. It just doesn't happen. Somebody's always addicted to somebody in childhood. Some white kid beats up a black kid, or a black kid beats up a white kid, and that kid grows up to not like that other race. That's the most basic of ways that it happens, Steve. And that shit's always gonna happen because kids are dicks. You wanna pre-program children? Let's talk science fiction, man. Like, alright. But let's work on a perfect society then. Let's have men fight bears in arenas. Because it'd be awesome. Right?
I think that if you truly care about freedom of speech, and the situation you want to see realized is the maximum number of people able to exercise their freedom of speech in our society, able to participate in political conversations, especially in ways that will be recognized and valued. And if you particularly would like to see this happen for groups of people who have been historically disenfranchised, who have been historically ignored or silenced or erased, whose contributions and ideas and voices have not been valued, then I don't see how you can justify choosing to defend neo-Nazis and people like Richard Spencer and people like Milo Yiannopoulos when they are protested, when their events are shut down by students at those colleges who have simply had enough and refuse to allow people like that to use their microphones and their stages and their venues to speak to their audience and spread their hatred and intolerance. If you believe in freedom of speech, you should be on the side of the protesters. You should be not defending the rights of people like Spencer and Yiannopoulos and others like that.
If you truly believe in freedom of speech, you should be on the side of the people who are stopping it. Steve, you can't really think this shit, man. You're fucking with me. I know when you're fucking with me, Steve. I know when you're fucking with me.
To spread their hatred. This is not an easy issue because we are human beings, we are imperfect, and there will never be a perfect system for determining who it is best to listen to and platform and who it is best to ignore. But we can at least decide amongst ourselves that the principle we should follow is not only freedom of speech, but guaranteeing freedom of speech to the largest possible number of people. Maximum freedom of speech.
Maximum freedom of speech. Maximum freedom of speech. The largest number of people. So, the majority. Dude, you really come off very racist, dude. Like, it's this weird masked race. It's this terribly, terribly done racist that you do. The maximum amount. So we're cutting out all the minorities. That's what we're doing. So that the maximum amount of people can have freedom of speech. Because that's what you're talking... Steve. What... Steve, like, you want the maximum amount of people. Steve, what are you talking about? What do you think that means? The majority, Steve. The majority. What's the opposite of the majority? The minority, Steve. What are you talking about? Like, I don't know. That sounds pretty white nationalist to me. I still don't really know. Somebody sent me a video. I think Ren Blogger sent me a video. It was a good video. I just, I don't know. That seems very white nationalist to me, Steve, that you want to have the majority to have this. I don't know, dude.
And we should not let our idealization of the principle of perfect freedom of speech or perfect tolerance prevent us from achieving the attainable goal of maximum tolerance or maximum freedom of speech.
Maximum freedom of speech. We want to limit freedom of speech for some people so that we can have maximum freedom of speech. swear to God, I can't tell if you're fucking with me. I can't tell anymore. Steve and Riley and Milo and a couple other people have gotten so fucking far out there now. I can't tell anymore. I can't tell anymore if you guys are fucking with us. I really can't. I can't tell anymore. Maximum freedom of speech. By limiting the majority's voice, we will achieve maximum freedom of speech. What the fuck are you talking about, Steve? Are you fucking with me?
Society where people who push ignorance and intolerance and hateful, dehumanizing ideologies are, legally speaking, free to say whatever they wish, but practically speaking, are not invited on prominent radio or TV shows or podcasts or YouTube channels.
Well, dude, at this point, people do it because they want to protest. Are you kidding me? Why do you think Berkeley turned around? Berkeley had fucking national news coverage of the fucking riot in Berkeley, and then they had another fucking big old riot in Berkeley, and now they want to have Ann Coulter so that they can have another riot at Berkeley. Berkeley is the riot center of the United States of America. They're having 2 a month now. So why wouldn't other people invite these people? I want Richard Spencer on my show just so I can have him on and go, yeah, I don't really agree with you, man, but whatever. You know, this is going to get views. Like, are you kidding me? Fucking Steve. Why do they invite these divisive people with all of this news coverage around them? I don't understand.
Are not given lucrative book deals, are not invited to speak on stage at colleges and universities, and generally speaking find it difficult, if not impossible, to amplify and spread their awful messages beyond their little circle of ignorance and hate. That sounds pretty damn good to me. How about you?
No, Steve. No. Bad. No. No, Steve. Bad. We do not censor people to get freedom of speech. Bad, Steve. No.